I am Admiral Kreth'Vazak, three-time recipient of the Stellar Command Medal, former fleet commander of the Orion Alliance's 7th Armada, and the only military leader in our quadrant who voluntarily retired at the peak of his career. Why, you ask? Because I'm not stupid enough to stick around for what's coming next. Look, 15 years ago, when the primitive radio signals from that blue-green mudball called Earth finally reached our monitoring stations, nobody cared. Nobody. The High Council assigned the case to a junior diplomatic aide for Void's sake, a junior aide to handle first contact with a new species. But that's how little we thought of them. Just another group of primitive bipeds, Grand Minister Telvik said, waving his central appendage dismissively during the briefing. Barely worth the diplomatic effort, but protocol demands we acknowledge them. The chamber erupted in that annoying, chittering laugh our politicians are so fond of. I remember watching the footage of their first ship limping through the dimensional gateway near Proxima Centauri. What a piece of junk, held together with what they called duct tape and determination. Their ambassador stepped out wearing what I later learned was their finest attire, but looked like decorative fabric wrapped around their oddly proportioned bodies. How quaint, murmured Science Director Falnay, seated beside me. They've managed interstellar travel without even resolving their planetary political divisions or achieving biochemical optimization. Oh, how we laughed. The mighty Orion Alliance, the Zanthari Empire, the collective of Ixal, the Trelekian Dominion, all of us, ancient spacefaring civilizations with thousands of years of history, looking down on these newcomers with their primitive weapons, fractured governments, and bizarre social customs. What a catastrophic mistake that turned out to be. The most catastrophic military miscalculation in the history of known space. Want my advice? If you ever meet a human and they give you that strange facial expression they call a smile, run. Don't walk. Run, because what comes next won't be pretty for anyone but them. Let me tell you how Earth went from galactic newcomer to the force that keeps our military strategists awake at night, and why I chose to hang up my command insignia rather than ever face them in battle again. The first official human delegation arrived at the Grand Council chambers on Nexus Prime during the 457th Galactic Assembly. We made them wait, of course. 6 hours in the anteroom while we discussed important matters. Mostly trade disputes between the Exilians and the Trelekian merchants over some worthless mining rights. In reality, we just wanted them to feel small. A power play as old as diplomacy itself. When we finally permitted them entry, Ambassador Leandra Blackwell led their pitiful group of 5 humans into the circular chamber. I'll never forget that moment. Hundreds of species represented, many with 4 or 6 limbs, some with no physical form at all. And these pink-skinned bipeds in their matching blue outfits walking in like they belonged there. The Grand Minister didn't even stand to greet them. The Council recognizes the representatives of Earth. He deliberately mispronounced it as E-Arth, triggering another wave of that infuriating diplomatic laughter. Blackwell didn't flinch. Not even a twitch of those strange eyebrows they have. Honorable representatives of the galactic community, she began, her translator device projecting her words in standard galactic. On behalf of the United Nations of Earth, I extend our profound gratitude for this opportunity to join the greater cosmic family. Standard diplomatic drivel. Nothing special. Then Ambassador Traz Ol of the Zanthari made the first critical mistake. Rising to his full 3-meter height, gold-plated ceremonial armor gleaming under the chamber lights, he interrupted her. Let's dispense with pleasantries. Your species has barely managed to leave its gravity well. Your technology is primitive. Your weapons are laughable. Your biological resilience is unremarkable. By what presumption do you consider yourselves ready for galactic society? I expected embarrassment, shame, perhaps even a retreat from the chamber. Instead, Blackwell smiled, not the usual polite diplomatic smile, but something else, something that made my dorsal spines tingle with an ancestral warning I couldn't quite place. Admiral Traz Ol, she responded, Somehow, knowing his military rank, though he hadn't offered it, humanity doesn't presume anything. We're here to learn, trade, and cooperate. Our history is young compared to yours, but we've learned much in our short time. She paused, that unsettling smile never leaving her face. As for our military capabilities, we hope we never have reason to demonstrate them. We come in peace, after all. The Zanthari delegation erupted in that booming laugh they're so proud of. Ambassador Kreth'Vazak actually slapped his armored thigh. Charming. The little primate threatens us with their projectile weapons and combustion-based explosives. The council chambers filled with laughter again. All except for Professor J. Kari of the Historian Collective. That old four-eyed academic was studying Blackwell with an intensity that should have warned us all. We've reviewed your historical archives, the Zanthari continued, thoughtfully provided in your first contact package. Your species spends most of its time fighting itself. Pitiful tribal conflicts over resources, ideologies, and territorial boundaries. You haven't even unified your own planet. Blackwell's smile never wavered. We prefer to think of it as extensive combat experience, Admiral. The laughter stopped abruptly. I remember thinking her response odd, but the meeting continued with technical discussions about trade possibilities and cultural exchanges, all carefully designed to keep humans in the lowest tier of galactic importance. As the humans left the chamber, Grand Minister Telvik leaned toward me and whispered, "Make sure our military keeps an eye on their system, but nothing serious. They're hardly worth a defensive perimeter." We had no idea what we were dealing with. None at all. 6 months after that council meeting, the Zanthari Empire decided Earth's solar system would make a convenient addition to their holdings. Nothing personal, just business as usual. They'd done it dozens of times before with other emerging species. A standard Type 3 acquisition operation, Admiral Kreth'Vazak announced at the military briefing I was invited to observe. Will establish protective oversight of their system. For their own good, naturally. His mandibles clicked in what passed for a Zanthari smile. The plan was embarrassingly straightforward. Send a fleet of 20 mid-tier warships, not even their best vessels, mind you, to Earth's system. Position them near their planet's natural satellite. Demand Earth's surrender and resource-sharing rights. Accept their capitulation. Set up a puppet government. Extract resources. The end. The humans will likely attempt some token resistance, General Vox Nara predicted, scrolling through data on human military capabilities. Their most powerful weapons are nuclear-tipped missiles, primitive fission devices with limited range. Their spacecraft are unarmed and can barely reach their own moon. I remember one junior officer asking about potential casualties. Kreth'Vazak laughed. Minimal. Their weapons can't penetrate our standard shields. We'll demonstrate our power by vaporizing one uninhabited area, and they'll surrender immediately. Standard procedure. 2 weeks later, the Zanthari flotilla arrived in Earth's system, dropped out of hyperspace near their moon, and transmitted the usual threatening demands. The humans requested a 48-hour period to consider the terms. The Zanthari granted it, assuming the humans were arguing among themselves or preparing surrender documents. Standard procedure. What happened next was, well, not standard. Not at all. 46 hours into the waiting period, the Zanthari fleet detected multiple small objects approaching from the dark side of Earth's moon. Hundreds of them. Too small to be warships, they were initially classified as debris or scanning probes. These small objects turned out to be what humans called kinetic bombardment satellites. Simple devices, really. Just solid tungsten rods with minimal guidance systems and thrusters. No explosives. No advanced technology. But moving at orbital velocities, aimed precisely at Zanthari shield generators? The first wave hit 3 Zanthari cruisers simultaneously. Or shields, calibrated to stop energy weapons and missiles, barely registered the solid projectiles before they smashed through the generators. The second wave was already inbound before damage reports finished processing. They're not supposed to have weapons in space. Kreth'Vazak reportedly shouted as his command ship rocked from multiple impacts. While the Zanthari were still recovering from the first attack, human spacecraft appeared from hidden bases on their moon. Not the primitive chemical rockets we'd observed, but nuclear thermal vessels that had been kept deliberately hidden from our surveillance. They launched what our analysts later identified as multi-spectrum EMP weapons, devices designed to temporarily disable rather than destroy. Then came the boarding parties. Yes, boarding parties. In space combat. Who does that? Humans, apparently. They're soldiers, wearing powered armor suits that multiplied their already surprising physical strength, cut through hull plating and stormed Zanthari vessels. They didn't follow any recognizable military doctrine. No standard formation. No predictable attack patterns. Each squad seemed to operate independently, adapting tactics on the fly. They're everywhere at once, came the panic transmissions. They don't move like any soldiers we've encountered. The humans targeted command centers, shield generators, and weapon systems with surgical precision. Not to destroy them completely, mind you. Just enough to disable the ships without causing catastrophic failures. They wanted the ships intact. They were stealing the vessels. In the middle of a battle. After just 6 hours, 11 Zanthari warships had been captured intact. 3 were destroyed by friendly fire in the confusion. The remaining 6 managed to activate emergency hyperspace jumps with damaged systems, barely escaping. Admiral Kreth'Vazak was taken prisoner along with over 2,000 Zanthari personnel. The official report claimed they were treated according to human concepts of warfare conduct, which apparently includes providing medical care to enemy wounded and not executing prisoners. Bizarre. When the battered remnants of the Zanthari fleet limped back to their territory, the Empire was faced with an unprecedented diplomatic and military disaster. Their attempt at a routine conquest had turned into a humiliating retreat. And just like that, the galaxy's perception of humanity changed overnight. News travels fast in the connected galaxy, but rumors travel faster. Within days of the Zanthari defeat, every corner of known space was buzzing with stories about the unpredictable primates, who had humiliated one of the oldest military powers in the quadrant. Have you heard? They boarded the ships, boarded them. Who does that anymore? The bartender at the Core Ward trading post couldn't stop talking about it. Nobody could. Military analysts from a dozen species published urgent reports. The Trilakian Military Academy held an emergency symposium. The Exilian Hive dedicated an entire neural cluster to processing the event. Everyone wanted to understand how a species with such primitive technology had outmaneuvered a superior force. I attended a closed-door session where Professor Kari, that same academic who'd watched Blackwell so carefully at the council meeting, and presented his analysis of human warfare psychology. Their entire history is warfare, he explained, his 4 eyes blinking nervously. Not organized, standardized warfare like ours, chaotic, adaptive combat. They never developed a unified approach because they spent millennia fighting themselves across varying terrains and conditions. He displayed historical footage that the humans had freely shared in their cultural database. Warriors charging with primitive bladed weapons, massive formation battles, guerrilla fighters in forests, urban combat in ruined cities, desert warfare, naval conflicts, aerial bombardments. Each environment required completely different tactics. While we perfected standardized warfare doctrines over thousands of years, Kari continued, humans were forced to constantly adapt or die. They never stopped innovating because they never stopped fighting. General Ulfar of the Orion Defense Force interrupted, but their technology is inferior. Their ships are slower, their weapons less powerful. Yes, Kari agreed, but they don't fight according to technological parameters. They don't engage in standardized fleet formations or follow predictable attack patterns. Each human commander appears to make independent decisions based on immediate circumstances. The room fell silent as we processed this. Worse, Jakari added quietly, they seemed to enjoy it. Our interrogations of Zanthari survivors revealed that the humans were laughing during combat, taunting their enemies, making jokes while boarding hostile vessels. By the end of that month, every major military force had established special divisions dedicated to studying human warfare. The Galactic Council, which had dismissed Earth as an insignificant newcomer, now included human activities as a permanent agenda item in security briefings. No one was laughing at the primitive bipeds anymore. 8 months after the Zanthari embarrassment, tensions reached a breaking point. The humans had salvaged, reverse-engineered, and improved upon the captured Zanthari vessels. They established trade routes with minor species, signed mutual defense pacts with the Freilian Confederation, and set up outposts near strategic resource hubs. They were expanding. Fast. The Orion Alliance, Zanthari Empire, Trilakian Dominion, and Exilian Collective, the 4 major powers who rarely agreed on anything, convened a secret summit. I attended as the Orion military representative. This unchecked human expansion must be contained, Grand Minister Telvik declared. Their unpredictable nature poses a stability risk to established galactic order. For once, everyone agreed. The plan was straightforward: ambush the human fleet at Nexus Station, the largest trading hub in the sector. The combined might of 4 major powers would teach these upstarts their place in the galactic hierarchy. We deployed 200 warships around Nexus. The Zanthari contributed their dreadnoughts, eager for revenge. The Trilakians brought their stealth corvettes. The Exilians supplied hive ships with their devastating psychic weapons. And my own Orion forces provided our most advanced cruisers with temporal distortion cannons. Against this armada, 38 human vessels. This will be over in minutes, Admiral Kreth'Vazak of the Zanthari gloated as we observed from the command station. Their primitive tactics won't help them against our combined might. When the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace, we were stunned to see they'd separated their vessels into specialized groups. This ran counter to all established military doctrine, which favored unified fleet movements. Their flagship, the UNS Thermopylae, broadcast a system-wide message, "Attention Combined Fleet." This is Admiral Maya Tanaka of Earth's Solar Navy. Your ambush violates 3 separate peace treaties. We request you disperse immediately. The combined fleet responded with a simultaneous attack from all sides. What happened next still gives me nightmares. The humans had somehow anticipated not just the ambush, but our exact tactical approach. Their fleet split into what they later explained were 5 specialized task forces, each with a specific function. The Hammer Group, heavy vessels with reinforced frontal shields, charged directly at the Zanthari dreadnoughts. Not to defeat them, just to hold their attention. Meanwhile, their Ghost Division, smaller vessels equipped with advanced stealth technology we hadn't known they possessed, slipped behind the Trilakian formation. They deployed what appeared to be mining drones, but were actually autonomous combat units that attached to enemy engines. They're behind us. The Trilakian commander's panicked voice filled the command channel. How did the transmission cut off as their flagship's engines detonated? The Exilian hive ships launched their psychic attack, a weapon that had broken the will of countless enemy forces. The human vessels should have gone dark as their crews collapsed into mindless stupors. Instead, pre-recorded heavy metal music, yes, music, blasted from the human ships at frequencies that disrupted the Exilian psychic patterns. Later, we discovered the human crews were wearing neural dampening headsets developed specifically to counter Exilian attacks. They'd studied and developed countermeasures for an attack they'd never even experienced. My own Orion cruisers moved in, temporal cannons charged. These weapons slow time within their target area, rendering enemy ships nearly immobile and vulnerable. As we fired, the human vessels executed what they called a crazy Ivan maneuver, deliberately overloading their engines to create localized space-time distortions that interfered with our temporal weapons. "Sir, temporal targeting is failing," my weapons officer reported. "Their distortion fields are creating unpredictable time variance." Then came their masterstroke. A group of tiny vessels, each barely large enough for a single pilot, launched from their carrier ships, Wasp Squadron they called them. These fighters moved with impossible agility, their pilots somehow withstanding G-forces that would kill most species. The fighter pilots targeted the exact same vulnerable points on our ships that they'd exploited on the Zanthari vessels months earlier. Not with kinetic weapons this time, but with precisely calibrated electromagnetic pulses that fried our targeting systems. There in our blind spots came the frustrated cries from ships across the fleet. "We can't get a weapons lock." 3 hours into what should have been a minutes-long battle, our command station received the most humiliating message in galactic military history. "Attention, combined fleet. This is Admiral Tanaka again. A third of your vessels are disabled. Another third have suffered critical systems damage. You've lost effective combat coordination. We have targeting solutions for your remaining ships, including this command station. Would you like to reconsider our request that you disperse?" The worst part, they hadn't destroyed a single one of our vessels. Not one. They disabled them, stranded them, rendered them combat ineffective, but deliberately avoided casualties where possible. It wasn't just a victory. It was a message: we could have killed you all, but chose not to. The 4 most powerful military forces in the galaxy retreated from Nexus that day, leaving behind damaged vessels that the humans actually helped repair before returning them. The galaxy would never be the same. After the Nexus humiliation, I was appointed to head a classified multi-species initiative called Project Primate Insight. Our mission was simple yet daunting: understand humans, find their weaknesses, and develop effective countermeasures. The finest military minds, xenopsychologists, and tactical analysts from a dozen species were assembled in a secret facility on Decimus IV. Our first breakthrough came when analyzing thousands of years of human conflicts. Most species in the galaxy evolved past internal warfare once they achieved planetary unification. Humans never did. They continued fighting each other even as they reached for the stars. They've experienced every possible combat scenario, noted Trilakian strategist Van Mora during our 3rd briefing session. Desert warfare, Arctic conditions, jungle combat, urban fighting, orbital bombardment, guerrilla tactics, cyber warfare, economic sanctions. They've done it all against themselves. The xenopsychology team made even more disturbing discoveries. Most species fight for rational reasons, resources, territory, ideology, explained Dr. Kreth'Vazak, chief xenopsychologist. Humans certainly do this too, but they also fight for emotional satisfaction. She displayed footage from historical human conflicts, where vastly outnumbered forces continued fighting despite certain defeat. This concept they call spite is particularly troubling, she continued. They will accept additional suffering, even death, simply to inflict harm on an enemy they believe has wronged them. It defies rational cost-benefit analysis. The room fell silent as we processed this information. "Are you suggesting," I asked, "that conventional deterrence won't work on humans?" "Precisely, Admiral," she replied. "Threatening a human often makes them more determined to fight, not less. Their historical records are filled with examples of threatened populations responding with increased aggression rather than submission. We spent 6 months developing and simulating potential countermeasures. Traditional approaches, overwhelming force, technological superiority, economic pressure, all failed in our models. Psychological warfare backfired spectacularly. Every time we thought we'd found a vulnerability, historical examples showed humans overcoming similar challenges through sheer determination or creative problem solving. What about biological weaknesses? Suggested Zanthari General Kreth'Vazak. Their environmental requirements are quite specific. We investigated that avenue too. Humans need oxygen, specific temperature ranges, particular atmospheric pressure. Yet historical records showed them adapting to fight in environments from scorching deserts to frozen wastelands, from ocean depths to high mountains. They'd invented equipment to overcome nearly every environmental limitation. After a year of research, we presented our findings to the Combined Military Council. Humans appear to thrive on adversity. The more dire their situation, the more innovative their response. They view overwhelming odds not as a deterrent, but as a challenge. Most concerning, they learn from each defeat, becoming stronger and more dangerous. Our final recommendation was as humiliating as it was unprecedented. Avoid direct military confrontation with humans. Seek diplomatic solutions. Integration is preferable to opposition. The council was outraged. You're suggesting appeasement? Submission to primitives? I'm suggesting survival, I replied bluntly. We can't beat them at their own game. They've been playing it far longer than we have. Project Primate Insight was officially disbanded the next day. Unofficially, most of us started preparing our home worlds for the inevitable. The diplomatic landscape shifted faster than anyone predicted. Within 2 standard years of the Nexus Conflict, 17 smaller galactic nations had signed protection agreements with Earth. Not the resource-poor or technologically backward species, mind you. These were established, mid-tier civilizations with valuable assets, the Freljin Confederation with their quantum computing expertise, the Nargasi League with their unparalleled medical knowledge, the Ryuvi domains with their rare mineral deposits. It's a pragmatic decision, explained Ambassador Trilnay of the Freljin Confederation when questioned by the Galactic Council. The Orion Alliance has ignored our security concerns for centuries. Humans responded to our first diplomatic message within hours and had a protection fleet in our system within a week. The Grand Minister's facial membranes flushed purple with rage. They're buying loyalty with military power. This violates the ancient balance of our galactic community. No, Trilna replied calmly. They're offering partnership instead of patronage. There's a difference. I was assigned to assess these new alliances, expecting to find evidence of human coercion or manipulation. What I discovered was far more disturbing: genuine enthusiasm for human partnerships. The smaller nations weren't being threatened or tricked. They were rushing to align with Earth of their own accord. Humans don't demand tribute or submission, a Nargasi trade minister told me over drinks, not realizing my true purpose. They want fair exchange. They protect our shipping lanes and help us develop defensive systems tailored to our species' needs. In return, we share our medical technologies. The economic implications were staggering. Human adaptability extended beyond warfare into commerce and technology. While the major powers had always controlled technological dissemination through carefully managed treaties, humans freely traded innovations with their allies. They didn't hoard knowledge, they weaponized its distribution. Have you seen what happens when you give humans access to new technology? My intelligence officer asked during a briefing. They don't just adopt it, they transform it, combine it with their existing systems in ways we never considered. The Ryuvi gave them basic gravitational manipulation technology. Within months, humans had developed applications for everything from medical treatments to construction methods to, yes, new weapons systems. The formal establishment of the Terra Allied Defense Pact marked a fundamental shift in galactic power dynamics. 23 species, collectively representing nearly a third of the galaxy's economic output, united under Earth's military leadership. Their announcement was painfully direct. The TADP exists to ensure the sovereignty and safety of all member nations. We seek peaceful relations with all galactic powers. However, aggression against any member will be considered aggression against all. The Galactic Council fractured along predictable lines. The four major powers, Orion, Zanthari, Trilakian, and Ixilian, condemned the pact as destabilizing. Another 36 middle powers adopted a cautious wait-and-see approach. And 14 more nations began preliminary talks to join the human alliance. We must respond with a unified military demonstration, urged Zanthari High Command. Show these upstarts and their new friends the true power of established civilizations. And risk another nexus? I countered. They defeated our combined fleets once already. Now they have access to Frelian quantum computing, Nargasi biotech, and Ryuvi gravitational engineering. What do you think will happen? The debate raged for months. Meanwhile, human trade vessels appeared in systems across the galaxy, offering favorable terms compared to the traditional powers. Human diplomatic missions established embassies on dozens of worlds. Human cultural transmissions, their music, stories, art, became wildly popular, especially among younger generations. They're conquering the galaxy without firing a shot, I observed during a high-level security briefing. And we're letting them, because we can't admit our millennia-old approach might be outdated. The old order was crumbling, and everyone knew it. The grand powers that had dominated for thousands of years were facing an unprecedented challenge, not from military might alone, but from an entirely different model of galactic relations. And then the Void Armada appeared, and everything changed again. They came from beyond the galactic rim, from the Void Armada. No diplomatic channels, no demands, no warnings, just massive ships of unknown configuration appearing at the edge of charted space, obliterating the Ixilian outpost on Terminus IV without slowing down. The long-range scans defied analysis. Their hulls absorbed our scanning beams. Their propulsion systems operated on principles unknown to our science. Their weapons, well, they didn't so much destroy targets as erase them from existence. Preliminary assessment suggests interdimensional origin, reported Science Director Falnay to the Emergency Council session. Their technology operates on principles outside our understanding. The Galactic Council, for all its political squabbling, recognized an extinction-level threat when they saw one. The combined fleets of all major powers were dispatched to intercept the Void Armada before they reached the densely populated core systems. I commanded the Orion contribution, 47 of our most advanced warships. The Zanthari sent 60 dreadnoughts. The Trilakians and Ixilians contributed similar numbers. Along with various smaller contingents, we assembled the largest military force in recorded galactic history. It wasn't enough. Not even close. The battle at Helios Gap lasted just under 6 hours. We lost 70% of our ships. The Void Armada lost none. Their vessels absorbed or redirected our most powerful weapons. Their countermeasures neutralized our defenses like they weren't even there. Their targeting systems predicted our evasive maneuvers before we executed them. All back to secondary positions. I ordered as my flagship systems failed one by one. Regroup at Centauri waypoint. The remnants of our once mighty fleet limped away, leaving the path to the core systems virtually undefended. The Void Armada continued their implacable advance, destroying everything in their path. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session on Nexus Prime. The atmosphere was grim, bordering on defeatist. Our best estimates give us 3 weeks before they reach the core systems, Grand Minister Telvik announced, his voice quavering. Evacuation is impossible. Our finest weapons are ineffective. This may be the end of our civilization. That's when Ambassador Leandra Blackwell stepped forward. The Terra-Allied Defense Pact requests permission to coordinate the galactic defense, she stated simply. The chamber erupted in outrage. Your species has barely been spacefaring for 2 decades, shouted the Zanthari representative. Blackwell waited for the noise to subside. That's true, and in those 2 decades we've defeated every major power in this room, adapted your technologies in ways you never imagined. and built alliances based on mutual respect rather than intimidation. Our forces remain largely intact because we chose not to participate in your unsuccessful strategy at Helios Gap. The silence that followed was deafening. "What do you propose?" asked Grand Minister Telvik finally. "Operation Thunderstrike," she replied, activating a holographic display. A multi-phase defense strategy developed specifically for this scenario. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. "You've been preparing for this? For how long?" "Since our first deep space telescopes detected anomalies at the galactic rim 15 years ago," she answered. "While your civilizations dismissed the data as instrumentation errors, our scientists recognized the pattern of dimensional incursion." The plan she outlined was unlike anything in conventional military doctrine. It involved sacrificing territory to gain time. He focused strikes against specific void vessels rather than trying to engage the entire armada. Weaponizing the fabric of space itself using a combination of technologies from a dozen different species. "This is madness," muttered Admiral Zek's collar of the Zanthari. "It violates every established principle of fleet engagement." "Yes," I agreed, studying the tactical projections. "That's why it might work." The Council voted, not unanimously, but with a clear majority, to place all remaining military assets under human command. I was assigned as liaison to the human flagship, UN's Defiance, commanded by Fleet Admiral Diana Torres. What followed was the most unorthodox military campaign I've ever witnessed. Human commanders operated with a level of autonomy that would be considered insubordination in any other fleet. Ships would deliberately take damage to maneuver into advantageous positions. Entire battle groups would retreat, luring void vessels into carefully prepared traps. "Stop trying to win by not losing," Admiral Torres told her commanders during a strategy session. "Win by making them lose harder than we do." It wasn't a doctrine focused on preservation. It was about calculated sacrifice. The first breakthrough came at the Vega checkpoint. A small group of human and Freilian vessels managed to disable a void cruiser by targeting the same point with precisely timed gravitational pulses. The ship didn't explode, it imploded, collapsing in on itself. "They're not invulnerable," Torres announced, her face grim but determined. "They just require more creativity to kill." The Nargasi biotech specialists discovered the void ships contained organic components that could be targeted with specialized viral weapons. The Ryuvi gravitational engineers developed disruptors that could briefly create blind spots in the void targeting systems. Every small victory came at a terrible cost. We lost ships by the dozens. Entire worlds were evacuated, or, when that wasn't possible, written off as casualties of war. The humans called it trading space for time, and they did it with a cold efficiency that chilled even me. The final confrontation took place in orbit around Nexus Prime itself. The remaining void capital ships, 13 monstrosities each the size of a small moon, against a cobbled-together alliance fleet commanded from the UN's Defiance. "All vessels, this is Admiral Torres. Commence Operation Thunderstrike, final phase." Thousands of ships, from massive dreadnoughts to single-pilot fighters, moved in perfect coordination. Not in traditional formation, but in an ever-shifting pattern that confused the void targeting systems. Meanwhile, behind the gas giant in the Nexus system, a specially modified human vessel prepared the ultimate weapon, a device that combined Exilian psychic technology, Bristolakian phase shifting, Freilian quantum computing, and human-designed gravitational manipulation. The battle was chaos. We lost ships by the hundreds. I watched brave crews from a dozen species sacrifice themselves to maintain the elaborate dance of position and timing needed for the trap to work. "Status of the Newton," Torres demanded as her bridge shook from a near miss. "In position," came the response. "Dimensional inverter at 97% charge. Begin the countdown." What followed is still classified at the highest levels. The official record simply states dimensional interference temporarily neutralized Void technological advantages. The reality. We tore a hole in space-time directly beneath the Void fleet. Not to destroy them, to send them back where they came from, and seal the dimensional rift behind them. The human vessel Newton and its escort ships never returned from their mission. Over 30% of the Allied fleet was destroyed. Nexus Prime suffered catastrophic damage to its orbital infrastructure. But the Void Armada was gone. Not a single ship remained in our dimension. The cost had been staggering, but as Admiral Torres had said, they made the enemy lose harder than we did. That was 5 years ago. The galaxy has changed in ways none of us could have imagined when those primitive bipeds first stumbled onto the galactic stage. The Galactic Council still exists, technically, but everyone knows where the real power lies. The Terra-Allied Defense Pact now encompasses 78 species, including, surprisingly, the Trilichian Dominion, who were the first major power to recognize the changing tide. The Orion Alliance and Zanthari Empire maintain their independence, but they've signed comprehensive security treaties with Earth. Humans oversee a new unified defense force, with ships and personnel from dozens of species serving under human commanders. Their military academies have waiting lists thousands of names long, with the brightest tactical minds from across the galaxy competing for admission. Sometimes I wonder if this was inevitable. In the vast evolutionary lottery of the cosmos, perhaps humanity drew a winning ticket, a perfect storm of constant conflict, remarkable adaptability, and just enough cooperation to prevent self-annihilation. While the rest of us evolved toward stability and standardization, humans remained chaotic, creative, unpredictable. Is that what warfare ultimately demands? Not perfection, but adaptation. Not strength, but resilience. Not technology, but the will to use it in ways no one expects. I don't know, and frankly I'm too old to find out. After the Void War, I submitted my resignation from the Orion Defense Force. My peers called it premature, even cowardly. Let them. I've seen enough of humans in combat to last several lifetimes. There's an old human military saying that their Admiral Torres shared with me during a rare quiet moment aboard the Defiance. It's not about whether you win or lose. It's about making the other poor bastard lose. That's why I retired, because I never want to be the other poor bastard facing humans across a battlefield. The galaxy sleeps more securely now, they say, protected by the most formidable fighting force known to exist. And perhaps that's true. But I still check the door locks twice before bed and keep a packed emergency bag by my sleeping chamber. Just in case our saviors decide the rest of us aren't worth the trouble after all. Oh, who am I kidding? If humans decided to turn on us, extra locks wouldn't help. Might as well enjoy the peace while it lasts. After all, we're under the protection of the most terrifying species in known space. Lucky us.